China is researching how to create super soldiers, genetically modified soldiers. They are actually researching how, and they've actually put into practice and tested out how to genetically modify existing soldiers and how to use CRISPR to create genetically modified babies and how to develop them in fully to term and artificial wombs, how to accelerate the gestation period in the womb from 9 months to 2 months, and more. This can be done to make up for the shortfall in Chinese demographics. It's coming right now because China's population is falling and aging, and China needs to do something about this. Peter Zeihan has predicted, a great demographer recognized globally, he's predicted China will fall apart within 10 years due to the demographic downslide. However, this is one of the ways out. One of the other ways out is their work in robotics, which I just presented in a previous video that you need to watch. I'll put a link toward the end toward that video. So there's a couple of paths here toward a future where China can totally globally dominate, actually take the world. This is a very sobering prospect. China can have whatever they want with programs like these. These I will show you in this video the research that's been ongoing. Some of this has foundations going back to the 1980s and how this technology is advancing, how they can actually put it together technically, how also they can pay for it, even given their current economic malaise. I mean, China is in a very bad spot economically, but they can still pay for this, and they have major incentives to do just that. Not only that, I will show you how they could actually extend this to make not only a workforce to make up for the demographic downslide. A lot of this will be focused on the demographics, Chinese production capability, their factories, but I'm going to show you how they could actually make a 200 million man army and may actually have incentive to do just that. I mean, a 200 man army of human beings, or what we would call humanoids. They look human, they're biological entities, but they're not going to be like you and me because they're going to be super strong, lots of strength, endurance, resistant to diseases, radiation, resistance to a lot of the things that befall us. Yet also, these would be trained to be loyal, like Spartan soldiers. Guys, look out! What's coming is very sobering. That's why you need to watch this video in its entirety because, a lot of it is me just giving the background of how they would do this. That might be a little dry, but that gives the credibility. I'm trying to show that this is actually doable, the credibility, my friends, for what China can actually accomplish. So let's get on with this presentation. I'm going to take you through this, my friends. And I'm going to introduce this character. I'm going to call it Captain China, kind of to be analogous to Captain America. So the idea is to use this as a representative, a symbol for the Chinese super soldier. The super soldier capabilities, kind of like we look at Captain America, is considered a super soldier. So, and who knows, there may actually be Captain China's, maybe one, maybe an army of them. I don't know what China might come up with. You might consider all these super soldiers to be Captain China as a sort. But I'm going to use this as a symbol just going forward because people understand what that means. So, and I got them all carrying AK-47s here just because that's easier to produce in the artwork than some of the futuristic, undefined weapons as yet that China is developing, like a coil gun that can launch 3,000 rounds per minute. Yeah, they've developed that. All right, guys. So one thing where you can find a lot of background is for this topic is on Next News Network on the X website. They posted a lot of content on this on one of their threads there. Gary Frenchy from Next News Network has also covered some of this on one of his videos, nowhere near the depth that I'm going to go here. What he's done is just kind of allude to the programs they have in developing superhumans, super soldiers, and growing them in artificial wombs, and the rapid gestation period being shortened from 9 months to 2 months. He covers all that. I'm going to show that more. So you can find some of this stuff on X. You can find it in other places. Guys, there's tons of background here, tons of articles. This research has been ongoing. As you can see here, even NBC News, which is probably pro-China and, not typical for reporting things like this, but they know that China has done human testing to create biologically enhanced super soldiers, according to U.S. Official. And this is Ratcliffe, a former Republican member of Congress from Texas. And here they're making the analogy to Captain America, just like I'm kind of using this Captain China for, because it definitely won't be Captain America, and that coming out of China. Maybe we'll have a Captain America here. Who knows? But anyway, and if I do reference to Captain America again, that's just going to be a symbol for the United States, not that we should be developing any genetically modified people. I think that's kind of abhorrent. But China doesn't have the same morals and standards that we have here in the United States. And this article goes on U.S. intelligence has shown that China has conducted human testing. This is the testing on actual existing soldiers, on members of the People's Liberation Army, and hope of developing soldiers with biologically enhanced capabilities. And this has been reported by U.S. intelligence. John Ratcliffe, just mentioned, is now director of the National Intelligence, included the explosive claim in a long Wall Street Journal op-ed, which he made the case that China poses a preeminent national security threat to the United States. Guys, I've never talked about that now, have I? Yeah, we got to be careful here. U.S. predicts China may be building Terminator soldiers. So we're talking about U.S. National Security Commission on Emerging Biotechnology. This is a different group. The NSCEB predicts China could produce genetically enhanced PLA super soldiers fused with human and artificial intelligence, like Borgs. The Charting the Future Biotechnology document explains that the Chinese Communist Party aims to use biologically powered troops to make the People's Liberation Army world-class military by 2049, which is their 100th anniversary of them winning their war, basically. So and becoming, the People's Republic of China. So, guys, this is something to be concerned about. The commission has every reason to believe that the CCP will weaponize biotechnology. Drone warfare will seem quaint. Wow, just what are we seeing Russia that the Ukrainians have done? They're saying that's going to be quaint compared with the technology that's on the horizon here. And here's another article. Synthetic human embryos created in groundbreaking advance. Scientists have created synthetic human embryos using stem cells in a groundbreaking advance that sidesteps the need for eggs or sperm. Basically, you don't need men or you don't need women. They can make, in terms of parenting kids, they can make either or obsolete. All you need is stem cells, which you take from a man or a woman to create these. Now, if they want to create male soldiers, I suppose they will use male stem cells. But guys, this is what we're talking about here. So let's move on here, with that Y chromosome, because males have a lot more physical strength, although with genetic engineering, they might make the women as strong as men. And, or maybe they won't even be male or female, but I think they will make them men or women. I'll go into that more in the future. International team creates first Crimea human monkey embryos. What? A team of scientists from the U.S., China, and Spain, see, China's in this along with some others this time, reported that the first embryos that were part human and part monkey and kept alive for up to 20 days in laboratory dishes. Now, again, these are embryos. In a separate study, see, China's working on this on their own too, not just with this international thing. Chinese scientists created synthetic embryos from monkey stem cells and implanted them in the wombs of adult monkeys. Some of these embryos initiated pregnancy, but none went beyond a few days because they terminate this type of research just for global, appearance. This research aims to deepen the understanding of early embryonic development, not intended for human application at this stage. Oh, wow. So, guys, think about this. What we know is that pound for pound, animal muscle is 4 times more powerful in measures of strength than human male muscles, a human male. A human male's muscle, pound for pound, is also 4 times more powerful than a female's muscle. An animal will actually develop muscle faster than a human, in addition to that, and also males develop muscle faster than females. So you can see here that this might be very useful to make these super soldiers if they just throw in a few genes from monkeys, maybe. Humans have something of an advantage in endurance, but they're looking at endurance also. Planet of the Apes, anyone? Yikes, guys. I mean, where are we heading? This really can create scary scenarios. It might not be Planet of the Apes, but it might be something analogous to that. A Crimea ape human or a humanoid person looks like a human, but maybe has ape strength. I don't know. We might get Planet of the Apes. Yikes. Maybe Planet of the Apes was a documentary instead of a science fiction movie. Let's hope not. Anyway, so let's go on here. The world's first artificial womb for humans. So the Europeans are involved in this too. Now look, this is in February of 2022 that this got reported. So this is 3-year-old technology. It actually predates that. Scientists in the Netherlands say that within 10 years of developing an artificial womb that could save the lives of premature babies, premature births. Well, guess what? China's ahead of that. But this is what the Europeans are doing. Uh, so they're saying that the children premature births born before 37 weeks have increased number of deaths among newborns. This development raises ethical questions about the future of baby making, though. Well, since when the ethics in China is promote the CCP. Anything that promotes the CCP is considered ethical. Anything. The artificial womb revolution has come along with debates that will spark over ethics. Again, who's got ethics? Not the CCP and even geopolitics. In 1996, researchers in Japan were able to put goat fetuses in artificial amniotic fluid. 5 years later, the Cornell professor grew a human embryo in an artificial womb for 10 days. In 2003, she grew a mouse embryo in a bioengineered uterus. Wow. See, guys, this technology is over 20 years old in its development. This is what we could be looking at, growing babies in a lab or in factories. And that is exactly what China is aiming to accomplish. And I'll show how they can do this at scale. Now, these are intended to be robot nannies here. Uh, and they call it ectogenesis. If ectogenesis is undertaken at scale by autocratic states such as China, who else? Russia's got demographic issues. North Korea. There's plenty of these autocratic states that might want to go down this road. Large numbers of children could be raised without a parent. This is in the Globe and Mail. This would be unprecedented in recent times. The few historical examples for raising a large number of children for the benefit of the state offer some sobering lessons. According to the philosopher Plutarch, the ancient militaristic Greek city-state of Sparta, in the form of a council of elders, decided whether newborns were strong enough to live or die, on the grounds that it is neither better for themselves nor for the city to live natural life poorly equipped. So if a child was born that was a little bit deficient, they terminated it. At around age 7, most Spartan boys would leave home for the agoge, a state-sponsored education program that would train them from battle in the name of Sparta. So essentially, they raised these boys from combat. From age 7 up, they grew up in a military training camp, kind of like a dojo on steroids, right? That's how they were raised. They were raised for war. It was called, we talk of something being Spartan, saying, it's very bleak, very minimalistic. There's no frills, no luxuries. That's the way the kids were raised, basically like growing kids in barracks. So this artificial womb and AI nanny is the future of child development, claims Chinese scientists. Now, see, this is over a 3-year-old article. Artificial wombs and AI nannies, the future of child development. The future of child development, like all children. This, according to Chinese scientists from the Suzhou Institute of Biomedical Engineering Technology, is the future of carrying babies to term, eliminating the need for pregnancy in mothers and increasing the safety of embryonic development, and also leaving them room to do a lot of genetic modifications. Their machine, complete with that AI nanny and multiple artificial wombs, is already carrying mouse fetuses, and in the process, it's outlined in their peer-reviewed research journal, Journal for Biomedical Engineering. It's important to note this is currently only being carried out on mice, and there's no guarantee it being analogous to humans. Well, we already know they've actually done some testing on human embryos too. So this article, again, 3 years ago. So where have they gone in the last 3 years, and where is this heading? Again, AI nannies, AI robotic nannies overseeing the development of fetuses in a pod, kind of like from maybe The Matrix was a documentary too. Wow. Except they want to hatch them out and use them in society, not keep them in the pod for a life. Uh, Chinese scientists are creating CRISPR babies. A daring effort is underway to create the first children whose DNA has been tailored using gene editing. So this isn't just doing a gene therapy on an existing soldier. This is creating babies who are tailored for whatever genetic disposition they desire. Super soldiers, super smart, super strong. When Chinese researchers first edited the genes of a human embryo in a lab dish in 2015, 10 years ago. It sparked global outcry and pleas for scientists not to make a baby using this technology, at least for the present. You think China's listening to that? They have every motivation in the world to proceed with this. And if you saw what the Chinese scientists just said, that's what they're planning to do. It was the invention of a powerful gene editing tool, CRISPR, which is cheap and easy to deploy and made the birth of humans genetically modified in an in vitro fertilization center theoretically possible. Now it appears that it may already be happening. According to Chinese medical documents posted online this month, I don't know when this article was written off the top of my head, a team in the Southern University of Science and Technology in Shenzhen has been recruiting couples in an effort to create the first gene edited babies. Well, they've actually done one a few years ago, my friends. They actually created one at least several years ago that we know of. They plan to eliminate a gene called the CCR5 in hopes of rendering the offspring resistant to HIV, smallpox, and cholera. Well, that's not all they're doing. Guys, if this technology is 10 years old, given how technology has been progressing and how fast it's accelerating, where are they today? Where will they be in 5 years? Genetic enhancements using CRISPR. China has been exploring the use of CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology to enhance human performance traits such as strength, endurance, and cognitive abilities. Strength and endurance. Remember, I said that's two different things. Animals have more strength. Humans have shine in the world of endurance. Well, they're working on both and cognitive abilities. Reports suggest that Chinese military researchers are investigating ways to apply these technologies to soldiers, potentially creating individuals with superior physical and mental capabilities. This approach aligns with China's broader strategy for integrating biotechnology into military applications. You can find this on the Mad Scientist Laboratory and tdhj.org and some other places. Integration of tardigrade genes for radiation resistance. Guys, so they're looking at making them disease resistant, stronger, more endurance, smarter, and radiation resistant. In a notable experiment, Chinese scientists inserted a gene from a tardigrade, a little bitty microscopic water bear animal that can actually survive in space. A microscopic organism known for its resilience into human embryonic stem cells. The goal was to enhance the cell's resistance to radiation, which could be beneficial for soldiers operating in nuclear and other high radiation environments. This research underscores China's interest in using genetic modification to improve soldier survivability under extreme conditions. And this came out in Popular Science and two other sources. My friends, you got to be kidding me. They've actually done this. They put the tardigrade gene in the human stem cells. And as I showed, they've already shown they can create embryos from stem cells without egg cells or sperm cells. My friends, this is downright frightening. Why would you do this for any other purpose other than warfare? This may be what we're looking at, my friends. They may intend to be able to operate in nuclear war. Why would they do that? Well, it may be some really aggressive plans coming down the pike from China. Whew. Well, again, back to our good friends, Gary Frenchy at Next News Network. Insiders suggest China's target is a full grown, viable infant in under 60 days. We're talking about from inception to birth. 2 month gestation may sound insane, but rapid stem cell cycling, nanotech nutrient systems, and AI monitoring make it plausible within the next few years. Okay, this came out in July of 21, 4 years ago. Are we there yet? Well, China's not going to tell us, but they may be close. Yikes. Just imagine these kids growing up. I mean, these could be like 3-year-old kids or 4-year-old kids with advanced accelerated growth. Just think about it. A bull grows up in 2 years, and a bull's a lot bigger than a human being, you know. So here they are in a dojo with a robot master teaching them, being raised by robots. Yikes. And well, what's examples? How about from 1989? Aqua Advantage salmon is a genetically engineered fish, a genetically engineered Atlantic salmon developed by Aqua Technologies in 1989. Guys, this fish was able to grow faster and grow to market size in 16 to 18 months rather than 3 years. So, way back in 1989, they were able to come up and actually create genetically modified animals that would grow out about twice as fast. And now they may be able to accelerate. Guys, this is ancient technology today. Ancient technology, 1989. So we got the 90s, the aughts, the ones, the 20s. We're talking what, 30, we're talking 36 years ago. 36 years ago. Tell me that technology hasn't advanced since then. Novel transgenic pigs with enhanced growth and reduced environmental impact. And where is this research? Look at all the names in it. All Chinese. Look at all these names of all these researchers. All Chinese. South China Agricultural University, Chinese Guangdong Winds Foodstuff Group. They have created pigs that will grow out faster, enhance growth. And this article is from 2018. 2018, May 22, 2018. So they've been able to do this in mammals. In mammals, my friends, for over 7 years. Where are they today? We're not just talking fish anymore. And a pig is considered one of the mammals most like humans. And that's why they use pig organs for human transplants a lot. Wow. All right, now just to show you, even with fairly regular, but genetically speaking, but smart kids, the record for a college graduate is 8 years old. Michael Kearney. He actually went to one of the Alabama universities, and when he was 10, he got up. He got his. He was just 8 years old when he got his college graduate degree, and he had his first master's degree by 14. I don't know. They said he graduated from high school at the age of 6. High school. You only need a high school education to be a soldier. High school education, 6 years old. Could genetically modified soldiers come out faster? How about an 8-year-old Chinese super soldier rocket scientist who astonishes the older gray-haired rocket scientist? That's what this depicts. A little kid by our books, an 8-year-old, well, he might be full grown by 8, so maybe this guy's younger than 8. Maybe he's 6. A tot rocket scientist. Imagine that. That may be where China's heading. And imagine again, growing up Spartan, and living in barracks. They don't need anything. Their whole life mission is to be a soldier. So they may be in their spare time, they're exercising, they're reading, they're studying, because these won't be just Spartan soldiers. These will be the ones that will also be smart, not just strong, kind of like the Macedonians. Alexander the Great was educated by none other than Aristotle. Well, they're going to have more knowledge at their fingertips than Aristotle had to impart on Alexander the Great through AI and the internet. So this one where I'm showing one reading a book, one at a laptop, and the other two guys working out in their barracks as they're preparing for war. And who knows, maybe these are 6-year-olds. I don't know, my friends. This is getting scary here. To Estimate the size of a facility. Now we're going to go into it. What's it take to make 1 million babies a year? So your facility will need to make some assumptions here. Uh, and what we're assuming here is the incubators would require a footprint of about 2 cubic meters. Uh, and this is based on neonatal intensive care incubators and artificial womb prototypes, each about the size of a small refrigerator or incubator, which is a lot less than that. That's more like 1.5 cubic meters. We're rounding it up to 2 cubic meters, excuse me, 2 square meters. We're talking about plant floor size in the factory where you're raising them. Support infrastructure, AI, yeah, so you're going to need a little bit more support infrastructure, AI, HVAC, sterilization, monitoring systems, and corridors. I don't know about sterilize the facility. Assume double the floor space, so we're going to round that up to 4 square meters per baby produced. Okay, so you're trying to make 1 million a year, you need 4 million. You know that just automatically falls out. So 4 million square meters, or about 988 acres, which is 1.5 square miles, 3.9 kilometers square. So this is about 1.25 size the Central Park, New York. It's larger than Pentagon, or about 1,000 soccer fields. Now, if you put them all in 10 floors, you could do this on, divide 980 acres by 10, 98.8 acres, which is manageable because it's roughly the size of Google's main campus in Mountain View. 1 million babies a year out of Google's Mountain View campus. Woo! Conclusion, facility capable of gestating. Now, this is the idea that was based on gestating one a year. One a year. If you can do them every 2 months, every 3 months, you could speed that up considerably and have a facility much smaller or make more kids out of the same facility. But this is just, this is just an exercise. So 1 million babies simultaneously. Such a facility would be the largest medical AI integrated structure ever built. So think about this as a Mountain View Google complex, right? Oh, 1.5 times the size of Central Park. But then again, you integrate it up, it's less floor plan. And so here's what we're looking at, guys. Robots tending to a bunch of embryos and pods in a factory, essentially, a medical factory, more or less. Wow, guys, does this look like uh, the Matrix? This is technically possible from everything that we're seeing. And it also seems to be within the goals of China, as the Chinese scientist above so stated. And he's talking about all births being done this way. I don't know, my friends. Testament how many 9.8 10-story womb facilities China will need to offset its decline in population. We'll look at that. So China has had a steep drop in births from 18 million to down to 9 million births per year in 2023. It's probably going down because Chinese people just aren't reproducing like they used to. They got economic uncertainty, more men than women, and a lot of other such things. Of course, maybe they'll make a few women for these men that don't have women and grow them up fast. I don't know. Anyway, population rate. China needs 21 million births a year. 21 million births a year based on having a replacement fertility rate of 2.1. Well, actually, that's 21 total. So if they're still having 9 million, you don't need to be quite this large as we're showing. But we're just following that Chinese scientist, and we're going to say that all births are done this way, which, this would be an addition actually to whatever is born naturally. Which China might decide they don't care so much for natural citizens because they're not maybe as loyal as these that they raise in the dojo. Anyway, military camps. So each 10-story womb facility make 1 million per year. So you want 21 million a year, 21 million per year. So you need 21 facilities. I mean, that's pretty easy math. 21 of these facilities, about the size of a Google complex. Well, that's a number actually. The Google Mountain View complex would produce 21 million babies per year, totally offsetting the demographic decline that China is experiencing. Well, guys, this may be the future. It may be our future. China may be our future because there may not be no us. This may be it right here. Is that dystopian? So we're talking a total land use of only 3.24 square miles, twice the size of the LAX airport. If they build them in 10-story facilities, just 2 times LAX. considering what this buys them. And think how China is really fond of big mega projects, the big dams, the big fusion facility. They're building a Pentagon type facility that's 10 times bigger than our Pentagon in China. They're building huge dams all over the place. The big bridges. I mean, China loves mega projects, and this is just something of that knowledge. But only 3.24 miles, that don't even qualify as a mega project. So smaller than a single county in any province. Conclusion: China will need 21 of these facilities to fully compensate for their birth decline. So, Peter Zeihan, you're wrong. This is how one of the many ways that China can make up for this demographic downfall. It's 2,075 acres, which is modest national infrastructure investment compared to the scale of mega projects China currently undertakes, as I just mentioned. This is some, what 5-story facilities might look like. They don't want to go as tall. So what's it going to cost for coming up with 21 million babies per year? Again, this is based on one a year. One per year. 21 facilities and a million babies per each year. That's one per year. We know that they're trying to accelerate that, maybe down to 2 months for a gestation instead of 9. And you probably wouldn't need a year even with 9 months. So this is conservative. So you would need fewer facilities and fewer costs really to achieve this goal. But 21 facilities, facility costs. So we're assuming $1.5 billion per unit based on biomanufacturing, neonatal technology, robotics, and biosafety containment. When does China care about that? Look at what came out of Wuhan, right? So we're talking $31.5 billion to develop these facilities. Operating costs for the gestation, we're looking at about $30,000 per baby based on futuristic but plausible cost declines versus NICU care today. It may actually, with scale, they can actually make this cheaper. It's believed that they could actually go down in cost. But we're talking about if it costs them $30,000 per baby for 21,000, just the operating cost, $360 billion. See, these babies can make a return on investment, believe it or not. So we're talking about a total cost of facility construction and just one gestation cycle of $661.5 billion. Now, once you've sunk that cost for the facility construction, that's not going to be your annual operating cost. That's the one-time initial cost. And if you're producing 6 babies a year instead of 1 out of the facility, then you're going to need 1/6 of 21. Or maybe you might, because you might have cleanup time, turnaround time, you might have to add another month, say maybe 3-month gestation period. So you get 4 babies a year. So you can divide that by quarter, and you won't need 21 facilities, or you can use the facilities just have amortize the cost better. Optional multiple cycles. If China reuses these facilities annually, one new cohort per year, then year 1 is 66.1, but year 2, your operating cost is only $630 billion, so it goes down. So the cost per child in 10 years, including facility and the operating cost to raise it, is $33,000. But I think it'll be more cheaper than that. They will use economies of scale and bring this down. To birth 21 million babies simultaneously using artificial wombs at 1 a year, then is only about 3 to 4% of China's GDP. Reusable overtime cost per baby would decline dramatically. So it won't be $33,000. It'd be much cheaper, maybe $10,000, kind of like some of these robots China is developing. About the price of a reasonably good shape used car, right? For somebody that's going to add immeasurably to your economy if they're working in laboratories or become soldiers and add to your economy by conquest of other lands, perhaps. Cost comparison of artificial wombs versus the natural birth subsidies for 21 million babies. So China's already subsidizing births of babies today. And that cost is, look, it's about a third. Facility cost is a one-time cost. This is the artificial womb cost per cycle, which will go down. This may actually shrink to be as small or smaller than that. What China's already spending. So, don't discount this. Here's a visual comparison. That's what we just saw, the 21 million babies, artificial wombs. Key takeaways. Artificial wombs are roughly 3 times more expensive than subsidizing natural births, at least initially. Oh, yeah, it may actually get cheaper. Artificial womb facilities are reusable and may become more cost effective over multiple cycles or if birth rates fall further, which means China might be. Guys, so first thing they're going to do is try to make up their demographic decline and use these potential super soldiers in factories. Of course, they may grow up in dojos and they have all the military training. So when called upon, they become soldiers. So you may get a dual use out of this. Or I should have making iPhones basically, or some kind of smartphone. To estimate how long it would take for China to offset its demographic decline using artificial wombs, you have to know and understand the scale of China's population decline, determine the birth rate replacement needed, and project how many babies could be produced annually using artificial womb facilities. And again, they're looking at this peak population in 2021, which was said by some estimates, which I think was a little bit overestimated, of 1.41 billion. Some think that it was about 200 million shy of that. But so the UN forecast medium variant drops to 1.3 billion by 2050. We're not talking about population drops 800 to 900 million by 2100. We think that actually China's population today might be just around a billion people, maybe a little bit lower. But still, if you want to get the population up to 1.4 billion and beyond, we're going to show you how to do it. So natural births today about 9 million a year, far below the 21 million a year replacement level. So that's their total replacement level. So we're looking at totally taking up for that, neglected the natural births, which are less than half what's needed. Shortfall, 12 million births per year to maintain current population size. But we were figuring for 21 million to be born. Again, you need somebody building the smartphones and other things that China's to build, right? So why not use super soldiers to work in the factories? So again, we're making a 10-story gestation facility, producing 1 million babies per cycle. Now we're cutting it down. Let's say there's still 9-month babies, but we're going to have a month turnaround, 10-month cycle, 21-foot such facilities. So 21 million per year. So that would match or exceed China's historical birth rates of 20 to 22 million per year in the 1990s. So the scenario one, full replacement rate. If China used artificial wombs to maintain 21 million births a year, actually to achieve 21 million a year at a 10-month gestation, they could stabilize the population growth immediately, return to 1990s level fertility, and counterbalance aging over 25 to 30 years. Faster if they can make them born in a shorter period and grow up faster, right? Maybe a lot faster, maybe 10 years. How long to reverse this decline? Assuming 21 million births per year, starting in 2030, by 2050, in 20 years, 420 million new young people, enough to offset the most projected losses from aging and death by 2060 to 2070, 630 to 840 million new individuals added, potentially to restore China's population back above the 1.4 billion. Yeah, it's going to be more, especially considering the regular people will still having kids too, right? So if China starts this program by 2030, it can stop population decline immediately, restore pre-crisis demographics by 2070, 2060, 2070. Actually, it could be a lot sooner. Do so without requiring societal shifts and marriage fertility norms. So you don't have to push the couples to have more kids anymore, or any for that matter. You see where we're going, my friends? Hey, Xi Jinping might decide he just wants to clone himself. There might be millions and millions of Xi Jinpings. Who knows? China's projected population natural decline versus this robotic growth, not robotic growth, but this artificial womb rebound. And this is projecting through the year 2070. And you can see this shows a population of 1.8 billion, surpassing historical peaks, assuming no constraints on natural resources or societal adaptation. That's where this leads. So if you're working in an explosive factory, these superhumans might be wearing suits for that. Anyway, If China successfully implants a mass artificial wind program and combines it with strategic planning, it could transform demographic decline into an economic engine. Guys, this can pay back. It could pay back many times over. And it's the line with distinct national goals. Repopulate China to restore the long-term consumer and labor demands, growth engines, labor force recovery, full replacement of retiring workers by 2050 to 2060, maybe sooner if they're having more kids with shorter gestations, especially if they can raise them maturity faster. But we're being conservative here. We're assuming here 10-month turnaround now. Urban development boom, mass construction of housing, schools, infrastructure, uh, healthcare and education industry surge in demand fuels new service growth economy. Consumer economy expansion, 40 million new young consumers by 2060, decades of stable domestic demand. So that's one of the things that they're projected to be short on. It's projected to hurt their economy. Outcome by 2060, GDP growth returns to the 5.6% range, underpinned by growing population and internal consumption. Guys, there's projections that if China just stays on a 5% growth rate per year, that they will definitely overtake the United States and not too long down the road in the future. They could accelerate that, especially if the gestation period is shorter, and particularly if they can actually grow these younglings faster, which we've seen that's happened with fish, 36 years ago, and more recently with mammals, like 10 years ago. Artificial wind facilities produce children, not just for China, but they would sell these. They could actually create a market. Asian nations, Japan, South Korea, Italy. Well, I'm thinking more like Russia, their allies. Uh, Talent-starved economies. Maybe China and Germany want to buy a few of these or import them. Guys, that sounds like slavery to me, but I don't know. It might they would find some other way. Oh, we're bringing new citizens in. I don't know. Strategic. Oh yeah, but they will be raised to be loyal to China. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they will sell the pods and let people grow their own babies. That would be an economic outsourcing that maybe a woman doesn't want to run her figure by carrying a baby. So she could suddenly have a lot of babies. I don't know. Strategic Demography at Service, DASS, paid childbearing as a state service. Wow. Paid childbearing as a state service. We're talking about export in just children, genetically screened and designed offspring, leased or adopted globally. Diplomatic leverage, use demographic surplus as a tool of influence. Outcome by 2060, China becomes the Saudi Arabia of human capital. This is scary. This is just downright frightening to think of. But there are countries that would definitely go for this, like Russia, who's losing so many people. I guess they probably wouldn't be genetically modified Chinese if you're sending them to Russia, but China's got the genetic, they have stole the genes on everybody. These guys will be working. All right, ladies, watch it. Don't get too excited here. In a hot factory, you got to stay cool, right? Especially when you got all these muscles to generate heat. Well, they're building here a robotic horse. Why a robotic horse? Because horses are very nimble. I don't know if you've seen the Kawasaki new robotic horse. They show pictures of it climbing mountains and going places that motorcycles or tanks could not go. So this may be the future mobility of warfare, horses, robotics horses. Anyway, I covered that in my robotics video that I put out a few days ago, last week. All right, artificially born humans. So this is a human robot synergy industrial revolution we're talking about here. This is the third scenario, which says, hey, they're combining the two. Artificial humans born are raised and educated alongside humanoid robots, leading to hybrid workforce economies. Full labor automation. Robots fill gaps in aging society. AI native human generation. Children grow up optimized for AI tech rich jobs. Bio AI convergence, integration of neural tech brain machine interfaces. We're talking about cyborgs here. Organic and robotic. Hey, look, China don't have the same morals that we have. They don't have the same ethics that we have. What's good is what's good for the CCP, and this would be definitely great for the CCP. It would ensure their dominance of the planet. They could own Earth if they so choose with development of these technologies. China leads the second machine age, uh, pairing scalable populations with scalable AI, becoming the most productive society on Earth. The Chinese actually, they have a big labor force, but their productivity is not as high as the productivity in America right now. And in some other countries, there's plenty of other nations that actually have a per person productivity that's higher. It's just the labor rates are a lot higher. Well, they could reduce labor rates and increase productivity. Scenario 4, this is a scary one, and this is more fitting with China. Authoritarian techno-demographic model. Think about it. China has cameras out watching everybody. The Chinese internal police forces to keep their own population in control are larger than their military. So, they've got social credit, all kind of ways over there to control their people. There's no freedom of speech in China. You say the wrong word, you disappear. Anything that sounds bad to the power of the party. So just imagine this. This definitely fits within and would probably be the actual model that China would want to use. China turns child production into planned technocratic endeavor. The growth engine, genetic screening, performance optimization, state-controlled indoctrination from birth. The state raises you, or the robots. Loyalty, engineered population base. They're not going to rebel. Right now, a lot of people want to overthrow the CCP. And if they did that, that might be the best outcome for us. That might prevent this nightmare from occurring. And it could happen in the next year or two due to the trade wars and other things going on, unless we relent to China. Other countries want AI governance scale to billions of people. AI governance. Is this getting scary? So why would AI wipe out people when people and AI are working together? Outcome by 2060, most tightly controlled, demographically robust regime in history, exporting governance models to other authoritarian states. That is frightening. And turning states that are not authoritarian into authoritarian states, maybe by conquest if necessary. Whoo! Wow, guys, think about this stuff. So here we're looking at 2025, 2050, and 26. The combined outcomes, optimized scenarios by 2060 that we could reach 1.8 billion people. The gross domestic product, which right now is 17 to 18 trillion dollars. Maybe it was estimated 18, but looks like they've had some due to their problems. It might be 17 or a little less. Imagine that going to $60 trillion. There's a huge payback for this. This isn't a big investment for China. They got, even if China didn't have any designs beyond their borders, which they're already showing with their 9-dash line, their harassment of India, and every nation around them, trying to take territory from them. Even Russia, they want to claim Vladivostok and probably all of Siberia. Global population influence today is declining. By 2050, be stabilized. In 2060, leading faster again if they could have short gestation and maturity growth rates. Global labor. By 2060, it would be massive. Today, it's considered minimum for global labor talent exports, where you're actually exporting your labor and talent. Dependency ratio for elderly. Today, there's a lot more elderly's dependents in the system, and it's really straining the Chinese economy, and it's projected to be worse in the upcoming years, and that's the basis of Peter Zeihan's claims that China will fall. By 2050 here, it will be balanced, and by 2060, much improved. Remember, this 2060 timeline can be moved to the left quite a bit, like I said, with rapid gestation and rapid maturity. Again, you only need to be 6 years old, the smartest people, to get a high school diploma, and that's old enough to be a soldier or work in a factory. 6-year-olds as adults, super soldiers, super strong, super smart. Wow, guys, where are we heading? And that 6-year-old wasn't genetically modified, by the way, but they could actually accelerate that. So if managed correctly, mass artificial growth curve could restore China's demographic strength, reignite domestic consumption and services, transform China into a human capital superpower, create entirely new industries and synthetic gestation, global population supply, and the scary part, hybrid human robot economies. Ooh, this is a regular human working on a robot. One of your little super soldier guys, or at least it looks like a human on the outside. Remember, you ever watch Battlestar Galactica, the reboot of it, which was on TV, where they looked human, but and some of them thought they were human, but they were actually robots. They just didn't know it yet. Some of them would discover, like, oh, I'm a Cylon. I didn't know that. But hey, they can do this with ladies too, and there's a lot of incentive to make some of these lady super soldiers, and they could work in factories and do the stuff that guys can't do with our big fat fingers. Women have fingers, we have fingers. So they could actually be very productive in the Chinese society, and China does have a shortfall of women. And those super soldiers will want some wives down the road, probably. And this might be a good way for that. The males may precede the females because wives are usually a little bit younger than males. And these ladies could serve in support roles to combat, like medics and many other support services. Remember, the actual soldiers are the tip of the spear. Most soldiers, the military, serve in support roles. But between them and robots, a lot of this will be done. But who knows? They may genetically modify these women to be just as strong as men and maybe even more fierce in combat. So they might be the one. Captain China might be a woman. Whew, I don't know, guys. Anyway, can China pay for it given their current economic headwinds, the real estate collapse, the decline in exports, youth unemployment, and capital flight? Money's leaving China, companies leaving China. Finance a massive artificial womb-based human production program might seem implausible. But the Chinese government sees this as a strategic demographic emergency. Mind you, they're predicted to cease to exist in 10 years, which would equate to being a strategic demographic emergency. It could still finance the early phases through a combination of central state mechanisms, repurposed assets, and geopolitical positioning. And here's how they can do it. There's several methods here. This is China's path to finance an early phase artificial birth programs. Sovereign special purpose vehicles. Create a national sovereign special purpose vehicle under the Ministry of Science and Technology or National Development and Reform Commission, the NDRC. Back this with land use rights, equity in state-owned enterprises, anticipated future taxes on the labor force, essentially. That gives you the ability to issue long-term bonds, specifically to fund the construction of 21 vertical gestation facilities. It's parallel to how China finances high-speed rail system despite the high debt levels that it took on. By the way, the high-speed rail has been a money-losing program. This would be a money-making program, and also a military building program. Convert ghost cities to bio-life zones. China has dozens of unpopulated or underpopulated ghost cities with housing, transport, utilities already in place. Millions of square meters of unused space. Plan retrofit buildings into womb farms, neonatal facilities, AI-operated nurseries, and education pods. That Spartan growth center, except they won't start at 7. They'll start from the beginning and be raised by robots or other genetic super soldiers or members of the CCP. Well, make sure their indoctrination is perfect for the purposes of the state. Redistrict unused industrial capacity. China has massive excess industrial capacity in construction materials, electrical equipment, and factory robotics. These sectors are currently underutilized. Redirect production towards building and outfitting gestation facilities, and also robotics facilities, as I mentioned earlier, which require less space than these gestation facilities. If you recall my previous presentation from last week. Reduces unemployment while funding the build out using local inputs. National tech and defense budgets. China's military and strategic tech spending currently exceeds $700 billion per year when off-book expenses are included. So reallocate 35% toward dual-use biotech with clear population security benefits. Remember, these guys can all become soldiers. Frame the program as demographic defense and population sovereignty initiative. If China don't do something, Peter Zeihan might be right, but it looks like they're going to do this. avoid politically sensitive civilian spending cuts. That's what that does. So, strategic birth, leasing and biotech partnerships offer other countries birth slots of the Chinese artificial wombs. I don't think it'll be Japan, South Korea, Italy, and Canada. They all do face crises, but so do other authoritarian states, such as Russia in particular, uh, especially after this war in Europe. Charge $30,000 to $50,000 per gestation. I'll see, that could be a big moneymaker for them right there. Sign deals with tech billionaires. Hey, can you imagine a million Zuckerberg's, million marks? Biotech giants and fertility clinics abroad. Elons, imagine millions and millions, billions and billions of Elons. Create a foreign revenue stream from the outset. Anyway, so feasible short-term technical plan for them. This is the first phase up from 2025 to 2030. This shows how that they, but while their economy is still in lurch, they can pay for this. This shows the combination or contribution from each of these sectors we talked about, paying it back over 40 years for the SPVs using long-term bonds. Go City retrofit, about $5 billion a year. Tech, that's what that brings in to this program. Tech and plus defense reallocation, $10 to $15 billion a year from existing budgets. Foreign and gestation and leases, pilot programs only during this period. Private domestic biotech investments, state-backed vulture capitalists, we call it venture capitalists, push maybe $5 billion a year. So this is how they can pay for it, guys, right now. Total average per year would be about 40 to $50 billion. That's enough to build 21 vertical gestation facilities, run a pilot scale gestation cycle, and train AI and neonatal workforce, and begin global population as a service exports. Even amid economic strain, China could finance a national scale artificial birth program if it leverages underutilized real estate factories and budgets, frames the program as a strategic demographic survival plan, which they need that and they know it, taps global demand for population and birth technology. So, guys, this is why they're looking at this. This is why they're doing artificial wombs. They already know this. This is a visual of how they would finance that, each one of these contributions. Annual funding contribution, again, from each one of those is just regurgitating what we've already said. Together, this diversified financial plan could generate to $50 billion a year, enough to fully launch and sustain the initial phases of large-scale demographic recovery program. And they could keep funding this for 40 years or longer if they wanted to. And the economy will start paying back the economy in spades in just a few decades. $60 trillion per year. Wow. That's no country on earth does anything close to that now. To create 200 million person military force by 2049. So now we're going to look at ramping this up to create an army. Now, this is looked at as being in addition to what we've already looked at. Of course, these same people we looked at earlier could be trained in the military and then put to work in industry. And they could be like National Guard or reserve troops that could be brought to bear in warfare. Or, but they just want to create a 200 million man army. You go to Revelations chapter 9. That's why I use this number. And it would also enable them to conquer the world if they so choose. China will need to execute the largest and most complex human mobilization and engineering program in recorded history. Here's how such a parallel artificial human military buildup could be executed. This is in parallel with what we've already talked about, assuming massive government coordination, technological advances, and political will. Imagine this. This could be where that could lead. And this is maybe why they don't. Here's Captain China leading a vast brigade of Chinese super soldiers right down the middle of America. That is the arch in St. Louis, if you don't know what we're looking at here. So that's why I got this artwork here. It symbolizes China right in the middle of the United States in force. That's where this could lead. So a phase strategic timeline. We're looking now from 2025 to 2030. Build legal, scientific, and industrial framework. Again, this is for the military, not just for demographic replacement. This is to create a giant army. Establish national eugenics and selected genomics program. Develop military-grade artificial womb tech with rapid growth enhancement. Now we're looking at the fast gestation. We're looking at 3-month turnaround now. That's what we're going to look at going forward. Construct dedicated military gestation and upbringing facilities separate from the civilian ones to make sure they're raised as soldiers. They may not be separate. They may all be raised as soldiers. Ideally, the new ideological indoctrination systems for loyalty imprinting during early development. That's what they would be designing. Begin R&D into brain-computer interfaces, reflex optimization, and aggression tuning. They want them to be capable of being very aggressive. 1 million embryos per year with military-specific traits by 2030. So just for starters, by 2030, we want 1 million. So we're going to scale this up for systematic military upbringing, increase artificial womb production to 5 to 10 million military children per year. This is in addition to the 21 million we saw. Create AI augmented upbringing zones with high-tech learning protocols. This is basically your barracks, the dojos, the military training facilities, the Spartan or the Macedonian upbringing for these young soldiers. Remember, Macedonia, with only 40,000 soldiers coming out of Macedonia, conquered the entire known world. What could a 200 million man army of super soldiers that are super intelligent, trained, and brought up for warfare do? Create AI augmentation upbringing zones. Just train subjects using VR, war scenarios, and robotics, and combat decision AI. No soldiers ever had that before. Integrate neuroplasticity enhancement, i.e., their brain would be plastic. They could move, they could change it, optimize it for whatever they needed to know and learn. Loyalty conditioning and multilingual capabilities. Yeah, you have to speak the languages of the places you plan to conquer, the troops you plan to fight. Apply CRISPR or similar gene editing tools for physical enhancement, not vision, endurance, healing, in addition to what we talked about before. Let's say that they would heal more rapid. That would be a good thing for a soldier. Night vision, natural night vision. Wow, it could be done because animals have that, right? You just need more rods in your, I believe, rods cones, I forget, in your retina. Anyway, cumulative Army age, 0 to 5 by 2035, 25 to 30 million potential soldiers. Again, here they are training in the dojo, back in the barracks. And when they're grown and ready to go, these 6-year-olds, they might be huge. There's other mammals that grow faster than this, my friends. This could be done. Here's an old scientist inspector checking out his super soldiers. Or they could be tiny. You might want small men to fit inside of certain machines. But this just shows what's possible. Not to say they're all going to be 10 foot tall, but maybe you might have different things. But anyway, maturity and combat robotics integration, transition adolescent soldier generation into integrated warfighters, integrate exoskeletons and autonomous drone companions. So imagine they got pet drones, pet robots. They may use exoskeletons to multiply their already super strength. I don't know, Canadian prepper Nate had some kind of artificial leg thing he used running. He claimed it worked better than he imagined. So we're already developing technologies like this. There's little miniature exoskeletons where you can just strap on a few braces, and then there's giant ones you can get in and drive around. It's different things. Anyway, enhanced with brain-machine interface training. At least they could train them this way, kind of like the Matrix. Download the knowledge and train it in. Deploy human robot hybrid squads in remote or border patrol scenarios. Who would want to mess with these guys? Standardize 7-year military educational institutions for accelerated development. Train in cyber warfare, drone combat, chemical resilience, which may be bred into their genes, and sabotage arts. Cumulative Army, age 10 plus, 100 million to 120 million by 2042. Here you go. Now this shows the cyborg human super soldiers. with the Chinese and scientists inspecting them. In the background, you see the DF-17, the Dongfeng-17 hypersonic glide nuclear missiles sitting on a launcher missile. That's what you see over to the right. This is a scary prospect we may be facing. I mean, these guys would survive an EMP, unlike the robots. They might have not the AI advantage, but they would still be super soldiers, super smart. Even if the AI fails, if they're EMP'd, and I'm sure they'll have protocols for trying to harden those electronics as much as possible for military whenever there's a military application. Again, I show them holding AKs, size for their bodies, whatever size they are. It probably can be coil guns or lasers. Who knows? Mature and field a self-sustaining deployable force. So we're talking mobilization and global force projection by 2042 to 2049, the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. Repurpose vast civilian infrastructure for training military housing. Links troops with global satellite AI and command infrastructure. Deploy globally under belts of robotic logistics and autonomous air navy support. We use a Belt and Roads initiative for this, guys. Finalized 200 million man force age 50 to 24 with 85% battle readiness. Force combat effectiveness and doctrine and biologically optimized by 2049. I wonder if they want to advance this and really go for it. Now, look here, guys. Imagine you're having to fight these guys. Imagine you're the soldiers on the little guys on the right fighting these guys. Now, hey, they're bigger targets, but then again, our bullets may not penetrate so deep into their massive flesh. It's not trying to take out a bear. You can't take out a bear with most of the rifles. A grizzly bear that people go take out for squirrel hunting. So imagine these guys would be tough. They could carry more body armor just because they're larger. The ratio of body armor weight to your size would reduce what would be required to take out to stop a round. So there would be some advantages in size, not to mention it'd just be purely intimidating to anybody that saw them. I mean, this kind of sounds like, in what the book was, the book of Exodus, where the Israeli army or the Hebrew army, whatever you want to call it from back in the days, were combating guys, and they said that we felt like grasshoppers fighting them. Anyway, I don't know. That's all questionable, maybe, but for some people, but that could be what we're heading toward, guys. I don't know. So financial estimates for the one plus upbringing infrastructure, 2 to 3 trillion. The genomics, biotech, exosuits. So there's something they're taking this to the next level. They don't have to be part of it, but it could be. 1.5 to 2 trillion. Indoctrination plus education, $1 trillion. Training, development, weapons, 3+ trillion. So we're looking at $7.5 to $9 trillion. Spread over 25 years, it's 30 to 350 billion per year, feasible for China's long-term GDP trajectory if justified as military civilian survival strategy. Conquest of the world. What's the return on this? The planet. If China pursued this with full commitment, it could generate a 200 million man strong army by 2049 using artificial womb mass gestation, AI leap led rapid training, genetic engineering, full robotic integration. Now, this is actually with regular gestation periods. Now we're going to show if they accelerate the gestation. Now we're going to look at the prospects of what can you accomplish if your gestation period is much shorter, if you can grow them much faster, and it actually moves the timeline to the left by 16 years. You could have the same effect not by 2049, but 2041 if they initiate the program this year. Again, this assumes they're going to use 100 10-story artificial womb facilities, the 3-month gestation cycle, 4 per year. That probably includes a month to just change out, clean up the facilities. Accelerated soldier maturity in 6 years. That's what this assumes. So in 16 years, they could have this. In 2041, Xi Jinping, if he lives that long, he's 71 today, he would be 87 years old, a year younger than his dad was when his dad passed away. So this might be very attracted to Xi Jinping because he could live to see it. He could live to see his conquest of the world. He could live to see and become Emperor Xi Jinping, Emperor Jing, like Emperor Ming, over a vast Chinese empire. Is that his dream? It could be. Ultimate. He's always strove for power. He does everything for power. Well, this would give him ultimate power. Emperor Xi Jinping, Emperor, I call him Emperor uh, Ping or Jing. Yikes, kind of like to rhyme with Ming. He may rename himself like popes do. I don't know. Or, he could live much longer even with this technology development. Think about it. The Some of the richest people in the world have a tendency to live to be 100 years old. How did David Rockefeller? How did Henry Kissinger? How's Soros and all these guys live so long? Much longer than would be expected statistically for us normal beings. They got some game. Well, if you're the richest man on earth, son, or one of the richest men on earth, and you've got this kind of technology at your fingertips, biotechnology and robotics technology, he might just become a Borg, be like Darth Vader, where the guy Anakin integrated into a robot, which might give him much longer life and more strength. So this is an older Xi Jinping in the year, what, 2100 maybe? I don't know. Yikes, or somewhere beyond. So he could live to see all this come to pass. Possibly. He might not survive this year, but these are not outside the realms of possibility of the kind of technologies that's being developed. So this breaks down the cost, facility, artificial birth process, military upbringing, advanced equipment, housing and logistics, how many trillions per year in US dollars today. So we can see how that adds up here. AI program to meet China's demographic shortfall. So it's three phases here. That's the first one. Two, produce a 200 million man army by 2049. And three, is a 200 million man army by 2041. Strategic financing for demographic military artificial women program. So this shows how they could advance this and make it all happen faster. With multiple channel of financing, they could accomplish this. Again, given economic constraints that China faces today, which I've already mentioned, and a risk from renewed U.S.-China trade war, they could still do it. Like I said before, it may seem implausible. However, China state has a long history of using non-market mechanisms, state control of capital, which we know they do that, and central planning to execute massive long-term programs, even amid economic ill headwinds. Artificial wind program. So this kind of just shows a lot of the same things, how they would accelerate this required funding during the first 5 to 7 years for 21 million. That's the first goal. Imagine this is what you're looking at coming at you in battle. Ooh, this is what we're looking at, guys. Central government SPVs, Ghost City conversions, healthcare population budget, advanced IPO push, biotech IPO push. That's your initial public offering, foreign fertility demand, military dual use framing. So we're talking they can be done for under $60 billion a year, which is well within China's central planning flexibility, even in bad times. Friends, think about this. Leverages domestic stock markets to float women tech unicorns. Program 200 million man army by 2049. Well, you're going to need 350 billion a year, raising over time $8 trillion to develop these super soldiers. Defense allocation budget 25 to 30% total defense spending in this case over 20 years. State AI military partnerships. Well, you're building an army, an unstoppable army, one belt, one army strategy, militarized belt and road regions with base expansion funded by friendly regimes. Again, other countries pay for the Belt and Roads Initiative. Other countries are going in debt to pay for China's way to invade them in the future, to take their territory because they can't pay for it. Debt monetization via central bank. This is a central bank, China's central bank digital currency. Resources for services, barter, trade robotics and soldiers for oil, lithium, food, or other political influences needed. funded like a slow-boiling space race wrapped in national security urgency. Now, to accelerate this, you need 500 to 600 billion per year, totaling $9 trillion by the program's completion in 2041 in this case. Again, that's going to be what this program leads to by 2041. This shows how to do it again. Mobilization economy declaration, treated as a wartime mobilization, similar to Mayo's Great Leap Forward, or U.S. World War II economy, national population security law, forced requisition of local assets, black budget off books accounting, and foreign disinformation. These are all in line with things that China's done before. It requires totalitarian style central economic override, which China is good at, but not unprecedented for China. Comparative, and it's got a huge payoff. The payoff's the planet. As I showed you earlier, how they could have 600 trillion economy per year just working up their, yeah, that will pay for this stuff once they get moving like that. Demographic birth program, 200 million army by 2049 and 200 million army by 2041. Accelerated. This shows you the per year cost, 2 to 3 trillion, 7 to 8 trillion, and 9 trillion for each program. The annual initial need annually, what it would cost, and the finance path. Comparison of each of these is doable. Despite a contracting economy, China can still initiate these programs if it consolidates funding under a centralized national strategy, which is how China runs things, frames these initiatives as existential for demographic survival and global dominance, which would definitely would give them both. And their demographic survival isn't questioned now. Just ask Peter Zeihan. Mobilizes internal resources, converts standard assets, and weaponizes AI biotech integration. And I just threw out an outline. I went to AI and asked it, what would it take to actually 3D print a human being? Because right now we can 3D print living organs, liver, kidney, heart, using transplants. You know, these are things that they're working on today. What would it take to advance that? And basically it projects a full body synthetic human printing by 2070 to 2100, albeit optimistic. Now that's even scarier, but just imagine if they actually 3D print full grown, ready to go human beings. Wow. Consciousness, printed human level being. We don't understand that yet, so maybe their consciousness would be an AI system. Yikes, guys. How do we get here? How does Captain America defeat Captain China? That's the big question we got to look at. Strategic response framework. Declare ethical red lines internationally. Lead a Geneva Convention-style accord against artificial wound-based human mass production. Amen. Genetic soldier engineering, AI-enhanced human cloning or augmentation. Yeah, have a Geneva Convention against that. Of course, China loves, they always thwart international treaties, just like their 9-dash line thwarts the international law of the sea treaty, which they signed, and they've thumbed their nose at the World Court. So I'm not sure how effective this would be, but it's a step. Create alliances, Five Eyes, NATO, Quad, to internationally stigmatize and isolate violators. It might at least deny them the market of exporting this mess, even to other authoritarian nations. This frames the issue as a global security plus human rights violation, not just a military race. And it's all that. It is global security, and we're talking human rights violations with this kind of program. But when does that stop China? And look how they treat the Uyghurs today. Look how they treat Tibetans. They're basically, it's awful. Or members of the Falun Gong, that nice little peaceful religious group that likes to stand in the morning and do exercises, with low impact body positioning, like dojo training almost, which China has gone after them and do an organ harvest for them, things like that. Awful stuff, guys. So this is what the other countries could do. Invest in neural enhancement, brain computer interfaces, and AI companionship for soldiers. I don't know. There's some brain computer interfaces they're talking about now are just put-ons, like a helmet. I might see that. I think we would go there. Implants scare me, but helmets maybe. Create cognitive augmentation systems that make Western soldiers vastly more adaptable, intuitive, and autonomous. Prioritize non-quantity based superiority, mobility, stealth, information dominance, cyber warfare, which China dominates presently, autonomous robotics plus drone swarms. Oh, that could help us out. Fewer humans, more empowered becomes the West's qualitative answer to mass synthetics. Build advanced human robot hybrid forces, combine volunteer human operators with semi-autonomous humanoid robotic units. We're talking about robots, not genetically modified people that would be operating with people. Focus on tactical agility, urban warfare, psychological advantage over massed enemy formations. Develop ethical constraints for robotic force use. I'd love to see China do that. A Guardian core structure may offer hybrid deterrent force to match volume with precision. So we may not need the volume, but we'll just have better precision. Preemptively disrupt China's supply chains, use intelligence and cyber forces to target artificial womb infrastructure, AI training models, gestational logistics, synthetic biology labs. You target all that. Target biorobotic, we target their supply chains to develop that. You can't buy this, you can't buy that. Of course, they may take the SpaceX mode and produce everything in-house. Target biorobotic export controls via international sanctions or economic decoupling. Already hit in both regards. Deploy space and drone-based ISR sensors to monitor suspicious military biotech installations. Cyber's high, cyber's low. Attrition and distribution, not confrontation, will limit breakout capabilities. Attrition and disruption, not confrontation. We don't want confrontation if we can avoid, especially with a 200 million man Chinese super soldier army. If China produces tens of millions of genetically engineered robotic soldiers that may attempt to infiltrate or use smuggled humanoids, smuggle them across the border in ISO shipping containers, a few at a time, or they come across with visas and depend to be regular people, use autonomous ships or ports, deploy robotics warfare swarms. Roboticized warfare swarms is what China might attempt to do. U.S. should respond by hardening ports and infrastructure via robot and drone detection systems, require robust AI augmentation and provenance tracking, create a national digital plus biological defense grid akin to NORAD, but for AI biotech threats. I think we're going to have to do that anyway, just given toward the bio threats that China is developing. They recently tried to sneak a fungus into America to take out crops. That's just happened in the last few days. Anyway, and there's that biotech lab at Reedy, California. So they've already been smuggling a lot of stuff into our country. So, and I've talked about ports, hardening ports and infrastructure. I've talked about the ports. And I've talked a lot about hardening our infrastructure, like a power grid. Advanced population resilience via selective AI assistance for the West. Incentivize natural births using AI-supported parenting, childcare, and fertility services just to make it easier on parents. So maybe you don't need so much daycare services. You got a robot helping you out at home. Rosie, the robot. What was her name from the Jetsons? Was it Rosie? Somebody tell me in the comments below. Promote distributed artificial womb pilot programs, only with tight ethical bounds. So, maybe that, just a regular couple would want to use an artificial womb. Maybe a couple wouldn't have a child otherwise because the woman doesn't want to mess up her figure or has health complications. That's a good step around that. Develop public-private fertility innovation initiatives, NASA style, but for sustainable population security because the population is falling throughout the West. Ensure the West isn't entirely outpaced in demographic renewal without abandoning core ethics. Now, that's going to be the big challenge. The U.S. doesn't need to match China body for body. It must outthink, outcode, and outmaneuver any force based on mass production, or humans or machines, including super intelligent super soldiers. Yikes. Yeah, it is time for some serious thinking. Hello, Tesla. We need 1 million Teslas. We need 200 million Teslas today. Time for some real serious thinking. Again, summary recommended for U.S. defense strategy, ethical treaty leadership, human hybrid robot force, disruptive ISR and cyber tools. ISR is your sensors. Domestic biodefense systems, selective tech-based fertility programs just to assist. Civilization narrative warfare. This shows kind of a summary of what the United States can do to defend against this initiative. I would say, what if we fail, though? What if we fail? In my last presentation, I showed a soldier releasing humanoid robots from an ISO shipping container, presumably somewhere in the United States. Well, now we got the robot releasing the humans, bioengineered super soldiers. Yikes. Yeah, is this what we're going to be facing? This is an American soldier going, oh my God. And this is the Chinese soldier who can survive it. And again, from Revelations, you might recall the 200 million man army riding horses that breathe fire, that have heads of lions. Well, there you are. The Captain China charging the world with humanoid super soldiers and robots and drones and robot dogs and gosh knows what else. Nowhere in the world would be safe if we fail. Nowhere. This is the Taj Mahal with Captain China leading the charge through it. This is Captain China leading the charge through Red Square. Russia even is not safe from China. As many of us project that one day China would take Siberia. Well, they might just decide with an army this big, they'll own everything. Here's Captain China running through Paris, which is burning after their war. Paris is already burning due to its internal issues with immigration. But this is Captain China running through the streets of Paris. If you got Paris, you got all of Europe, right? Here's in Rio de Janeiro, across the Redeemer statue. They're charging through the park, headed toward Rio. The Brandenburg Gate in Germany. Nobody's safe, not even the US of A. Captain China having taken him. New York City, you see burning in the background. Statue of Liberty hoisting Chinese Communist Party PRC flag, People's Republic of China. Yikes, guys. How do you stop it? And eventually, these soldiers may be rewarded. We'll give you land in the areas you conquest. You can create your own homesteads, your own farms, and breed more Chinese. If you're already genetically created as a Chinese super soldier, your kids will automatically carry those genes. They'll be also Chinese super soldiers, spreading throughout the world. This is Siberia. This is a Chinese robot, a Chinese super soldier couple, male and female, creating themselves a new life in the land they conquered in Siberia. They took this land from some Russian. You can see the Russian flag laying on the ground and the Chinese flag hoisted high. Yikes, guys. We're talking planet China. Nobody on Earth would be safe. What do you do? How do you, if we allow this to pass, is there anything to be done then? Maybe we can find a way to escape. There may only be one solution. Get your ass to Mars. Maybe Elon was right. I told you so. I don't know. Let's hope it don't come to that. But yeah, I prefer the moon over Mars. So there's a lot more economic case for going to the moon. The moon is, has you can have develop business and military cases for going to the moon. The moon, I think, is a better choice than Mars from some of those standpoints. Anybody remember Mae West? She used to say, "Come up and see me sometime." Well, now maybe she's saying it from the moon. Let's go to the moon. Come up and see me sometime. If you remember Mae West, tell me in the chats below. Then I'll know you watched this toward the end. So yeah, Mae West, I remember her. Who's Mae West? Look her up. Come up and see me sometime up on the moon. So maybe that's how we survive. Or the best alternative is the people of China decide, the regular people, human beings, normal human beings that are there today, decide they don't want no more of the CCP and they get rid of it. And maybe the Republic of China shines once again over mainland China. That's Taiwan today. They were pushed out of mainland China by the communist insurgency that established the People's Republic of China. They're not a breakaway republic. They were the Republic of China. So maybe one day they too will be able to hoist, they'll be able to hoist their flag over Tiananmen Square. Maybe soon, sooner than later. This current trade war has a lot of Chinese people unhappy with Xi Jinping. Now, just changing Xi Jinping out and keeping the CCP in power isn't going to do the trick, because the CCP, even under previous leaders, had the same kind of goals. They just weren't as overt about it as Xi Jinping. So, my friends, maybe this is the solution. Happy Chinese with freedom and prosperity. Normal, regular human beings. Well, now, isn't that a much prettier solution? Aren't those people lovely? I think Chinese people are wonderful people. They got a severe yoke on their neck with CCP strangling them right now. They would love freedom. They would all celebrate should the PRC cease to be in power. And I think that is where we need to go, my friends. That's what I would like to see right there. Happy, free Chinese people coming soon. So maybe the trade war is the answer to help that come about. Anyway, that may be our single best alternative. That's why I really cringed when I heard Trump say that he would reach that deal with China to cut tariffs because he knew that China would break if he didn't do it. So he's like trying to preserve the role of the CCP. He's like, you got to be kidding me. But now he's kind of come back with some other tariffs, and that seems to be getting scuttled. That might be a good thing. So all that cheap junk you're buying at Walmart that you're so fond of may not be such a great thing. Because you're funding the CCP's military, the PLA, People's Liberation Army, as they call it. Well, that's not about liberation. It should be called the PCA, People's Conquest Army, or something, or People's Domination Army, PDA. I don't know, friends. I know I went long today. This has been a long video, but I really want to thank you for watching to this point. And subscribe to my channel, bang that notification bell, and click all. This has took me over a week to produce. The whole thing has been, probably 3 weeks in the making. I started this along hand with the robotics stuff. So you can see that through robotics and or Chinese super soldiers or genetically modified artificial women-born children, China can totally take care of their demographic issues. They have other means they could employ too, like getting rid of elderly people, which China doesn't seem to have a lot of care for people in their country. Just ask the Falun Gong. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. Or go to China Unscripted or China Uncensored YouTube channels and go back through those videos and see what Chris over there is telling everybody. My friends, we're in for a big challenge. Will we be permitted to live if this takes place? Probably not, unless you're deemed worthy of being a zoo specimen. I don't know, my friends. This is highly concerning. There are things we can do though. Never surrender. Never give up. As long as you got hope, as long as you got breath in your lungs, never get up. But you need to be prepared for this and many other reasons. Get your preps going, guys. Our country may collapse for many, many different reasons. We may be in for a rough ride ahead. But I just wanted you to see this. One of the first steps to counter this is the knowledge of it. It's understanding it. Nobody else, no other channel has produced content like this. And yet this is crucial knowledge that everybody needs to know about. Please share this video widely. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. Greg out.